They didn't erase our weapons. They erased our songs. Reforger's Last Testament, Fragment 7b. The ash shifted like breath beneath her boots. J. Sorrow stood at the edge of the ruin, visor flickering with unstable readouts, as if her systems couldn't agree on whether this place still existed. The coordinates said she was here. The Dominion charts said she wasn't. Obris 17. A world officially redacted in Cycle 9 of the Silence War. A planet marked unviable. No surviving settlements. No living memory. Yet here it was, and somewhere beneath the stone and soot, the flag still stood. The last flag, the one they never burned. She descended through what had once been a city. Every building was collapsed inward, not from bombing, but from deliberate structural disruption, as if gravity itself had been rewritten to devour what had stood. Scorched lines etched the streets, patternless, except for the one glyph she kept seeing scratched faintly into bent steel. A spiral, cut with a scar. She knew it. Everyone who had worked near the Forbidden Archives knew it, even if they pretended otherwise. The Reforger mark. J moved in silence. Her suit filtered the air, breathable barely, but rich with static particles that played tricks on long-range sensors. No aerial mapping. No orbital scans. That's why she was here. That's why they hadn't found it first. She ducked under a beam of fused glass and bone, the bones indistinguishable from the wreckage now, and entered what remained of the central administrative dome. Her path was guided not by signal, but by feeling. There, below the atrium, behind layers of dust and melted alloy, she found the old staircase. Not carved, not engineered, chiseled, by hand. It spiraled downward for 10 levels, then split into 2 branches. She took the left, instinct, and came upon a vault. Not Dominion tech, not even human tech as she knew it. Just a door of seamless alloy, matte black, 10 meters across, with no key panel, no biometric lock, no engraved command language. Only a mark, the scarred spiral, and beneath it, carved not by machine, but by tool. If you find this, then we never returned. Do not let them unmark us. She exhaled slowly, reached forward, laid her palm against the symbol. The vault didn't hiss, didn't groan. It sang, a low vibration, not in her ears but in her teeth, her spine, her breath. Her visor blinked out. Her HUD collapsed. Her implants went null. And the door opened, not outward, not inward. It unwound. Like time. Inside was no bunker, no weapons cache, no cryo chamber, just a single space. A perfect circle, walls etched with faint lines that pulsed like veins beneath stone. And, at the center, a flag, upright, unburned. Still, she stepped forward. It wasn't cloth. No fiber would survive this long. It shimmered faintly, as if caught between material and memory. Her breath caught. She'd seen recordings, fragments from erased transmissions, but never the real thing. Not the last flag. Black field. No nation sigil. No planetary symbol. Only the spiral and the scar. The memory tech woven into its threads activated the moment her shadow touched it. The room sealed behind her. Light dimmed. The silence thickened. And then, the resonance began. Not a voice. Not file. A presence. A chorus of breathless stories, recorded not as data, but as emotion. And they remembered her. The resonance didn't come as words. Not at first. Jay stood still in the circular chamber, hand resting near the base of the flag, as vibrations pulsed faintly through the floor. Her breath slowed to match the rhythm, though she didn't mean to. It was as if the space had begun tuning her, calibrating her awareness to something ancient and persistent. The light in the room dimmed further, but the flag began to glow. Not bright, not strong, just enough to cast a memory-shaped halo into the dust. Then the voice arrived, not from the flag, not from the walls, from below her heartbeat. You were late, but you came. She didn't speak, not because she was afraid, because something inside her already knew the reply wasn't meant to be said aloud. The walls began to shift, not physically, not visibly, but Jay could feel the curvature of the chamber folding wider, like memory expanding into forgotten corners. The etchings along the surface began to glow, dull at first, then in soft, threaded lines, like veins carrying old blood. Each pulse came with a thought, not hers, someone else's. She closed her eyes, let happen, and the room unfolded into the archive of fire. She saw the city as it once was, not in perfection, in resistance. Cracked towers repurposed into signal nests. Ancient turbines pulled from deep mines converted to disrupt Dominion orbital sweeps. Children carrying stones with words scratched into them. Not to throw, to hide. Messages. Names. Then came the last assembly. Men and women, armored but not uniformed. Every piece of gear mismatched. Scavenged. Customized. Each of them bore the same mark. The spiral scar, painted on shoulders, etched into helmets, drawn in blood across gloves. Jake tried to focus on faces, but the vision refused. The memory had no permission for identity, only purpose. They stood in a circle around the flag. One woman stepped forward, short, broad-shouldered, voice calm. She carried a long rod in her left hand, the base of the flag. "We raise this not for what we own," she said, "but for what they try to take. We raise it not in hope of victory, but in proof that we stood. Let the ash forget, let the stars pretend, but the stone will carry us." She planted the flag into the ground, not above a monument, above a song, one that had been buried in the earth, looped on subharmonic frequencies, too low for the Dominion to detect, too old for machines to translate. Only the reforged could hear it. Only the forgotten. The resonance changed. Jay opened her eyes. She was back in the chamber, the flag before her. Still, but warm. A single word flickered across the woven memory tech. Anchor. She stepped closer. Knelt. There were words stitched into the base of the flag. Handwritten. Impermanent. But preserved through resonance freeze. A process long lost. Older than the silence. The message was not signed, but it was meant for her. If you are reforged, we are your silence. If you are Dominion, you cannot understand this. If you are neither, then you are the hope we buried. The flag trembled once, then fell still. The light returned to normal. The walls dimmed, but the memory stayed. Jay stood, and this time she spoke aloud. "I'm not here to burn it. I'm here to carry it." The flag did not reply, but it lowered itself from its base. Not by mechanics, by choice. And her hands, shaking, accepted its weight. It wasn't heavy, but it felt like it had waited a long, long time to be held again. It didn't fold like fabric. The flag moved like a memory. Not stiff, not soft, but reactive. It shimmered in her grip, absorbing the trace ions of her skin, indexing them into itself. Jay felt it. The subtle intake of the weave, not just storing her touch, but asking who she was. She didn't know how to answer, but the flag accepted her silence. She clipped the base into her back frame. It locked in with no resistance. Her system HUD, which had stayed dormant since entering the chamber, flickered to life. Lines of text she didn't authorize flashed in her vision. Recognized input. J. Sero. Heritage. Unregistered / nonlinear traceable / human relic. Custodial permission granted. Relic flag number 1 vestige. Symbol reactivated. Conditional status. Walking marker. Jay blinked. Walking marker? What the hell is a walking marker? No answer. The flag shimmered once behind her, then went inert. She turned. The chamber had changed. Where before it was a tomb of silence, now pathways opened between the walls, panels folding outward, crystalline prisms rising from beneath the floor. The vault was not only a sanctuary, it was a transmitter, and now that the flag had been lifted, even just from its cradle, it began to speak again, not with sound, but with instructions. The flag guided her. Each step she took illuminated another sequence of the chamber's wall carvings, glyphs unfolding into slow-moving reliefs. Not static stories, but reactive memories. As she moved, they changed. Scene 1. A world in flame. A reforger convoy under orbital bombardment. But no one ran. They stood in formation, chanting not with voices but with boots pounding ash. The sigil burned into the earth around them. In sound, in silence. Scene 2. A Dominion official, seated at a tribunal. There is no record of these insurgents. He gestures to a blank slate. Therefore, there is no crime. Laughter. But behind him, a data scribe, a child, is engraving the spiral onto the inside of her sleeve. The flame lives, not in law, but in lineage. Scene 3. A child born in 0G. A nurse wraps him in a cloth with no color. But in the center, stitched by invisible thread, the scar sigil glows only when the child weeps. A lullaby plays. Not ancient, not recent. A melody Jane knows. She hums along. Only when she finishes does she realize she has never heard it before. And yet it lived inside her. Waiting, she falls to her knees. Overwhelmed, tears come, not from pain, not from beauty, but from recognition. She was not a warrior, not a builder, but she had always believed something was missing. In her memories, in history, in how the stars chose what they kept. And now she knew they had burned everything but the flag. And even that was because it chose not to burn. The chamber's final passage opens. A gate unlike any other. At its center, a single phrase, not encoded, not translated, just spoken through presence. You carry it. They will see it. They will remember. Or they will run. Jay walked forward, not as a soldier, not as a messenger, as the flame reborn. Behind her, the flag shimmered again. It did not wave. It did not burn. But for the first time in centuries, it rose. The final corridor of the vault wasn't built for travel. It was built for transmission. As Jay stepped into the tunnel, the walls narrowed, pressing close with pulsing light stitched into the surface. Not decoration, but living thread woven with resonance. Each step sent vibrations rippling outward. The flag on her back responded in kind. Not visually, not audibly, but by amplifying the signal within the stone itself. She realized she wasn't walking through a tunnel. She was walking through an antenna. A voice flickered across her neural field, like a forgotten melody resurfacing after silence. This is not a beacon. This is a memory bomb, and you are the fuse. She paused. The message wasn't metaphor. It was literal. Her presence, her name, her pattern, her resonance signature. All of it was being braided into the activation matrix of the vault. And the farther she walked, the more it remembered. Not just her. All of them. She came to the core. It wasn't a console, not even a node. It was a basin. A hollow well cut into the floor, lined with ancient fiber wire and biolattices. Above it, the ceiling folded away. No dome, no machinery, just sky. Ober's 17th atmosphere shone through bruised gold and silt blue. It looked sick. It looked still, but it was listening. She knelt beside the basin. The flag rose behind her, anchoring itself in a groove that hadn't existed moments ago. It wanted to be planted. She let it. The basin glowed, then sang. Low, subharmonic, not meant for ears, meant for space, for satellites that no longer existed, and for receivers that no longer remembered how to recognize truth. But it sang anyway, because the memory inside it did not require permission. Jay closed her eyes. The song passed through her bones, her marrow, her silence. It was not hers, but it had waited for her, and now it was her. In the basin, light began to coil, formless at first. Then, a child's face, a woman's outstretched hand, a battlefield covered in hands reaching up, holding nothing. A single ember that refused to extinguish. The voice returned, softer now, We gave our names to flame. But one name must remain. One symbol. One shape. That is why the flag was never burned. It cannot be erased. Jay whispered. Why me? No answer. But the basin pulsed brighter. And the flag ignited. Not in fire. In memory light. Gold. Black. Red. Then white, the color of sound. The final pulse surged. And the signal launched. Straight upward. Through the open ceiling. Into the bruised sky. Beyond the planet's surface. Out. Into the stars. Across the fringe of known space. Where derelict beacons floated in aimless rotation. A ripple passed. A frequency that shouldn't have existed. And still, the old machines woke. Not to reply. To listen. Jay stood in silence. Her knees buckled. She sat beside the basin. And waited. Not for a message. For memory to return. To someone. To anyone. And far, far away. A reforger, deep sleeper, frozen in cryo drift. Opened his eyes. And whispered. They finally raised it again. The signal reached farther than it had any right to. Past dead constellations. Past erased war zones. Past the Dominion's firewall nebulae, whose only job was to bury frequencies too stubborn to die. But this wasn't just a frequency. It was a story stitched into resonance. Not a call to arms. Not a call for help. A reminder. And reminders could not be jammed. Jay didn't move. Her hands rested on her knees. Her spine leaned against the flagpole. She hadn't slept in 31 hours. But her eyes refused to close. The memory was still moving inside her. Not as thought, but as vibration. Like her blood had become a circuit. Outside the chamber, the ruin remained silent. But inside, the flag had begun to hum. It wasn't just one song. It was hundreds, thousands, all woven into the resonance of the field. The voices didn't blend. They echoed, and each carried a name. Not the name of a person, but a moment, a place, a thing worth remembering. Jay stood again. The basin had gone dark, but the ground beneath it now pulsed with breath. That was the word she came back to again and again. Breath. This station wasn't mechanical. It wasn't even architectural. It was an organism of recollection, and she was now part of its respiration. She placed her hand on the floor and saw a vision. No projection, no hologram. Direct input to the memory layer inside her own brain. A planet. Familiar. Wounded. People walking across glass plains. Dragging crates. Carrying injured. One man carries a child, but the child is humming a song. She recognizes the song. It's the one the flag just sang. And the man? He doesn't look at the flag directly. He walks beside it. Not for protection, for bearing witness. The vision shifts. A reforger vessel. Unarmed. Evacuating non-combatants. They pass through a kill zone. The Dominion fleet pauses, does not fire. Why? Because a ship is broadcasting only one symbol. No shields. No cloaking. Just the scar sigil. The Dominion doesn't recognize it anymore. They don't know what it is. But something in their command matrices tells them. This is not a target. This is a remnant. They let the ship pass. They call it a system glitch. But it wasn't. It was respect written into forgetting. Jay opened her eyes, looked at the flag, and for the first time, she realized it wasn't just a story. It was a protection field. Not against bullets. Against erasure. It was humanity's immune system made visible. And she was now its antibody. The chamber shook. Faintly. Her comms flickered. A signal. Someone was pinging her location. Unidentified source. No frequency. Just an open band phrase. We saw the flame. We're coming. Jay stared at the message. And smiled. The ones who raise it may not survive. But the ones who see it will remember. Anonymous fragment. Carbon etched on lunar glass. The message repeated. We saw the flame. We're coming. No coordinates. No tags. No name. But she knew who they were. Or what they were. Others like her. Others who carried fragments stitched into their DNA, their dreams, their silence. Others who hadn't known what they were waiting for until the signal rose. Jay walked back through the vault's entrance. The song of the basin faded behind her. The outer chamber was as she'd left it. Still, scarred, listening. She stood once more before the hollow where the flag had been raised for the last time before the war ended in silence. Now it had been raised again, and this time it wasn't just a marker of sorrow. It was a flare, a challenge, a map made of defiance. Her suit HUD blinked again, dozens of small pings, then hundreds, some from deep space, others from sealed ruins, from locked bunkers, even from Dominion structures left derelict by war and memory. All of them saying the same thing. We saw it. We remember. We thought we were alone. We are not. Jay stepped outside. The sky was clear now. The dust winds had receded. Above her, 3 stars pulsed in alignment. They didn't do that before. She felt the shift in her bones, as if the universe had taken a breath. And in that pause, the lost had been allowed to return. The flag shimmered behind her. It did not wave. It watched, and now it would travel again. Not to fight, to be seen, to remind, to unerase. Jay smiled, exhaustion lining her cheeks, and whispered to the silence. Let them come. Let them follow the signal. Let the Dominion hear nothing, and feel everything. Behind her, the scar sigil pulsed once more. Carved into the stone, etched into the vault, now burned into the sky. And somewhere in deep drift space, a reforger child asked his mother, "What does that mark mean?" She knelt, touched the screen, and said, "It means we were here." Subscribe to HFY Chronicles. Continue the journey in the full playlist, Chronicles of the Lost.